Mary, my wife, was rummaging through some old boxes and came upon a book. Oh, where's the book? Where's the book? Oh, here it is. That was supposedly written by an LDS powerhouse apostle. He was an apostle when I was a kid. His name's Mark Peterson. Now remember, LDS apostles claim to be exactly like the 12 apostles Jesus chose. When the original 12 were alive, they spent their entire existences sharing Jesus crucified, risen, with such passion that they were taken, and all of them but one was martyred with a very horrible death. And the LDS apostles today, well, they travel around the world, always first class, by the way, always first class, and typically only mentioning the name Jesus Christ, typically, when they conclude their talk about the duties that you need to perform when you're LDS. Oh, and they also write books, some of grave importance, like this one that we found by an apostle when I was a kid, and it's titled, Virtue Makes Sense, with an exclamation point. Hey, what a novel way to get our kids to be virtuous. Of course, there's chapter headings in here like petting is evil. And he goes on and talks all about ways in which humans can overcome the terrible nature of our sexuality. Now, where biblical Christians try and live lives that are supported through spiritual rebirth and then spiritual growth, and then spiritual maturity to help them reach a place where they can be virtuous. Apostle Mark E. Peterson was known for his ever so humanist attempts at keeping people virtuous through some of his own apostolic suggestions. Now, in fact, it was this spiritual genius, Apostle Peterson, who gave us these nuggets of wisdom in the 1970 Mormon Missionary Guide, and this is regarding the subject of, I'm going to call it mastication. We will call it self-abuse. This is what Apostle Peterson wrote for missionaries out in the field. First one, he wrote, graphic. When you bathe, do not admire yourself in the mirror. Never stay in the bath more than 5 or 6 minutes, just long enough to bathe and dry and dress, and then get out of the bathroom into a room where you will have some member of your family present. Well, thank you, Apostle. That was excellent. Now, the next one says, when in bed, if that is where you have your problem for the most part, dress yourself for the night so securely that you cannot easily touch your vital parts, and so that it would be difficult and time-consuming for you to remove those clothes. By the time you start to remove protective clothing, you would have sufficiently controlled your thinking that the temptation would leave you. Next one says, if the temptation seems overpowering while you're in bed, get out of bed and go into the kitchen and fix yourself a snack. Even if it's in the middle of the night. And even if you're not hungry, and despite your fears of gaining weight. Now, listen, I took that advice, and I eat a pizza every night at 1 in the morning. And I'm totally kidding. Okay. Next one. Listen to this. This is an apostle. Listen to what he writes. Listen to this. Next one. Be outgoing and friendly. Force yourself to be with others and learn to enjoy working and talking to them. Use principles of developing friendships found in books such as How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot. Now, we're coming to my two or three of the final ones that I love. Here we go. When the temptation to masticate is strong, yell stop to those thoughts as loudly as you can in your mind, and then recite a pre-chosen scripture or sing an inspirational hymn. So, anyway, that's what, stop! Called to serve in heavenly kings of glory, chosen. I mean, now these final two are my favorites. You ready? Listen to this. I am not kidding you. Quote, in the field of psychotherapy, there is a very effective technique called aversion therapy. When we associate or think of something very distasteful with something which has been pleasurable but undesirable, the distasteful thought and feeling will begin to cancel out that which was pleasurable. If you associate something very distasteful with your loss of self-control, it will help you to stop the act. For example, if you are tempted to masticate. Think of having to bathe in a tub of worms and eating several of them while you do the act. This is sickness, my friends. And this is what teenagers and missionaries were cutting their teeth on from the apostle of the Lord. Reduce the amount of spices and condiments in your food. Eat as lightly as possible at night, which is sort of kind of self-contradictory because he also says get up and eat, but he also says eat as lightly as possible. So I know, and my all-time favorite, here we go. In the very severe cases, it may be necessary to tie a hand to the bed frame with a tie in order that the habit of mastication in a semi-sleep condition can be broken. You know, I am almost certain that had Peter and Paul been allowed to live long enough, they certainly would have included all of those suggestions in their Gospels. What do you think?